Hello and welcome to another session of the My Solo 401k Financial YouTube webinar series. Thank you so much for joining. Please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube for more videos like this. If you have questions on YouTube, please chat them over as we're going to go through those sequentially. All right, so today's topic is the Solo 401k establishment process. We're going to talk about the steps to open up a Solo 401k plan. So the presentation is being provided for educational purposes only and should not be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice, nor as a solicitation. When making an investment decision, please consult with your tax attorney and financial professional. So we do want to highlight that if you are on the YouTube channel, please subscribe as we are hosting webinars regularly, at least one per week. For example, we're in the middle of a set of webinars regarding how much income you need to maximize contributions. In other words, people talk about it as the magic number, right? How much W-2 wages do I need if my business is taxed as an S Corp, or how much income do I need to report on Schedule C if my business is taxed as a sole proprietorship in order to maximize contributions. So we go through the scenarios and calculate what that number would be. We also are going to have a number of deep dive sessions like today's regarding the Solo 401k establishment process. Another one on the docket is Solo 401k loans. And then a hot topic lately has been the fact that Vanguard has exited the Solo 401k business. So we hosted a deep dive webinar regarding that topic, but we anticipate having more content. And of course, we have a resource hub on our website. You can access it easily on mysolo401k.net. There's also a forum where people are posting questions. So it's a great way to learn and to share the knowledge. So as far as the Solo 401k establishment process, we want to answer the following questions that are posted here, right? Am I eligible to open up a Solo 401k? What are the benefits and features of opening a Solo 401k with My Solo 401k Financial? What's the steps, right? What's the process? Where can I open up accounts? How can I fund my Solo 401k? And then to help paint the picture, we want to go through some common use cases of why clients do end up opening up a Solo 401k plan with us. And then we'll end up with some bonus content as far as the $1,500 Solo 401k tax credit. Great resources are on our community, mysolo401k.net/my community. It's always free to join. All are welcome. So forums, library of hundreds of videos and webinars. We host daily Zooms, office hour style Q&As on the community where people come and ask questions. So it's just a great way to ask questions or hear what other people are asking, a great way to learn. So the first question we want to answer is, am I eligible to set up a Solo 401k? Well, you are going to be eligible to set up a Solo 401k if you're self-employed with no full-time W-2 employees. So a Solo 401k is for owner-only businesses with no full-time W-2 employees. As far as the specific qualifying requirements, again, you got to be self-employed, right? Have an owner-only business without any full-time W-2 employees. So full-time would mean someone that's working 1,000 hours or more with 1 year of service, or 500 hours or more for 2 consecutive years. Now, of course, that could be you, right? You could be the W-2 employee, and that doesn't mean that you're not eligible to set up a Solo 401k. Could also be a business partner who's working in the business and reporting their own earned self-employment income, or a spouse may also participate if they're working in the business. As far as some of the top eligibility considerations, do I need a separate entity like an LLC or an S Corp? The answer is no, right? We have many individuals who are operating as sole proprietors, and they're eligible to set up a Solo 401k as long as they're reporting earned self-employment income on their taxes. So ultimately, that's the key. You got to report earned self-employment income on your taxes. It could be income reported on Schedule C. It could be W-2 wages from your business tax as an S corporation. Is there a minimum amount of earned self-employment income that you need to report? So no, there isn't. But of course, if your goal is to be able to make contributions, you're not going to be able to save more than you earn, right? So if you don't report a relatively high amount of earned self-employment income, then you're not going to be able to save a relatively high amount to the solo 401k. Again, a spouse or business partner can participate as long as your spouse or business partner is reporting their own earned self-employment income, like a separate Schedule C or W-2. You can set up a solo 401k even if you have a W-2 job, right? A day job. As long as you have got that separate earned self-employment income. You could even have a solo 401k if you participate in your W-2 employer-sponsored plan, so your day job 401k. Again, as long as you've got that separate earned self-employment income. Why open a solo 401k? Well, that's comes down to the benefits and features of our plan. So at a high level, right, I mean, our solo 401k is going to put you in control, right? And you have maximum flexibility in terms of investments, right? If it's an allowable investment under the rules, it's allowable under our plan. You have checkbook control, right? We don't hold or have access to any of our customers' funds or their accounts, but we're helping them open up accounts at the bank or brokerage of choice where they have checkbook access. It could be checkbook from a brokerage account, of course, checkbook from a bank account, right? And that enables them to act quickly to take advantage of investment opportunities. With our plan, you can make high contributions. A solo 401k plan has the highest contribution limits for any defined contribution plan available to self-employed individuals. And on top of that, our plan is going to allow for not only pre-tax contributions to reduce your income for the year for which you make the contribution, but also allows for Roth and voluntary after tax, which is how one makes mega backdoor Roth contributions. Our plan allows for loans. So, right, it's like an emergency fund, right? You can use the proceeds of the loan for any purpose whatsoever. And we also act quickly, right? We set up the plan same day so that you're able to quickly access these benefits. So let's dig deeper on some of these top reasons why someone would open up a solo 401k. Alternative investments, right? So our plan is not going to be just limited to brokerage type investments. Of course, you can make those types of investments, such as mutual funds, stocks, bonds, right? We help clients open up accounts at the bank or brokerage of choice, Fidelity and Schwab or top options. And you're going to have the same type of investment options you would have with an IRA at one of those companies. So it could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. But our plan also allows for true alternative investments, such as real estate, promissory notes, precious metals, cryptocurrency, private placements. And so having that checkbook control, that wire control as well, allows someone to act quickly to take advantage of investment opportunities. Also, it may satisfy the investment provider, right? Some of the investment providers, if it's a private placement, they may want all the investors to ACH the funds to the investment provider. So having that bank account is going to allow you, that solo 401k owner, to ACH the funds to make their investments so they can participate. Contributions would be another top reason. Again, the solo 401k plan has the highest contribution limits for any defined contribution plan. And we give tremendous support in terms of educating our customers as far as the contribution limits, the deadlines, the mechanics, helping them set up the accounts, right? Whether that's pre-filling paperwork to open up a brokerage account at Fidelity or Schwab or another brokerage, or preparing a bank account packet to help them open up a bank account, right? They've opened up accounts at hundreds of different banks and many different brokerages. And then making the different types of contributions, right? Some individuals, they want to reduce their taxable income by maximizing the pre-tax contributions, whereas other individuals, their objective is to maximize the Roth contributions. Some people take a blended approach. They first want to maximize the pre-tax bucket and then make any additional contributions they can make as Roth contributions. And our plan not only allows for employee and employer Roth contributions, but also allows for voluntary after-tax contributions. This is how someone is able to make so-called mega backdoor Roth contributions, where, for example, for 2024, you could end up contributing $69,000 to your Roth account via the after-tax account, or even $76,500 if you're 50 or older. Another top feature that will draw clients to set up accounts with us is the fact that our plan allows for participant loans. So this is where you're literally taking funds out of your solo 401k and they can be used for any purpose whatsoever. It's not going to be considered a taxable event as long as it's properly documented as a loan. So we handle the loan documentation requirements And as long as it's paid back according to those loan terms. So the terms of the loan is that you could borrow up to 50% of your solo 401k balance, not to exceed $50,000, right? It has to be paid back in monthly or quarterly payments, equal payments of principal and interest, with those payments spread over a 5-year term. Now, the term of that loan could be extended up to 30 years if the proceeds of the loan are going to be used to buy your primary residence. So we can also accommodate that type of loan. So expand the amortization table, the repayment schedule to match the underlying mortgage, right? 15 years or even 30 years. So another top reason that clients would set up accounts with us is the ability to consolidate their retirement accounts, right? We're helping you set up the brokerage account or the bank account that you want at the financial institution that you prefer. And then you may say, well, I'd like to, roll over funds from a former employer plan or one of these IRAs that I have outstanding. So as long as the funds are eligible to be rolled over, right? So they're in a former employer plan or a non-Roth IRA, right? You typically can't transfer money from a current employer plan until you actually separate from service, right? Until you leave your job. But as long as you're eligible to roll it over, then we'll guide our clients through the transfer process, right? We pre-fill the paperwork that's required. And we have tremendous experience in helping clients transfer funds, rollover funds from hundreds and hundreds of different places. And we've mapped and tracked all that experience to make the process easy for new clients or existing clients that are now going through that process, right? So if you want to transfer money from a certain place, almost virtually all the time, we've had experience helping someone else do it before. So we can leverage that experience to make it easier for you. Now, you can't transfer money from a Roth IRA because of the Roth IRA rules, right? But you can transfer pre-tax money in an IRA. It could be pre-tax money in a SEP IRA, a simple, a traditional. And again, we're pre-filling that paperwork, guiding our clients through that rollover process, which is important. We'd like to be involved because the institution that has your money today has an obligation to report that transfer to the IRS, right? So it's going to be important that the IRS, that it's reported correctly. And what triggers the reporting is how the form is completed or how the directions are provided to the current holder of your account. So now they understand, okay, you're transferring the money to your new employer solo 401k. This is a non-taxable direct rollover. Then it's going to be reported correctly to the IRS. So the IRS understands that this is not a taxable event when you transfer the money from your existing account to your solo 401k. Another top reason is the fact that debt financed real estate investments inside of a solo 401k. Remember, one of the top reasons that clients set up accounts is the ability to invest in alternative investments. One of those top alternative investments is real estate. And some clients are using their solo 401k funds in conjunction with debt, right? With a mortgage to invest in a real estate property. And so it is possible to use your solo 401k funds together with debt to make a real estate investment. Now, your typical local bank is not going to lend money to a solo 401k, but there are financial institutions, lenders that specialize in this type of financing. And it has to be a special type of financing called non-recourse financing. So that means that the only recourse of the lender, if the loan is not paid back, is the underlying investment property. In other words, the solo 401k owner cannot personally guarantee the loan. They're not allowed under the rules, right? So it has to be non-recourse, right? Where the only recourse, again, is the underlying property. That, of course, means that the lender is going to price it differently, right? Oftentimes they want, say, 50% down on that loan. And if someone were to make that type of investment using an IRA, right? Money in their IRA plus non-recourse financing to invest in a real estate investment property, the income that derives from that investment, right? Say the rental stream, is going to be subject to a special kind of tax called unrelated debt finance income tax, right? This is where you have a leveraged investment inside of your retirement account. Typically, the default is that income that derives from that leverage investment is going to be subject to unrelated debt finance income tax, UDFI. But there is an exception for solo 401k plans, for 401k plans that have income from debt financed real estate, right? That's real estate is subject to acquisition indebtedness inside their solo 401k. So that would be a big advantage of a solo 401k investor who wants to invest in debt finance real estate using their retirement money versus the same investor that would want to use money in an IRA. So hopefully that makes sense. Bank or brokerage account, right? We don't hold any of our customers' money, but at the same time, we're very hands-on in helping our clients open up accounts at the bank or brokerage of choice. And our clients open up accounts at hundreds of different banks, many different brokerages, right? So now that they have total control, they can do their preference, right? As long as that financial institution will open up an account for a third-party plan or trust, right? And then again, we have deep experience in helping clients open up accounts at many different places. And, a lot of times, we will just pre-fill the forms, or we've already got the forms and we'll just pre-fill it quickly so that it's filled correctly so that there's no delay in opening up the accounts. Conversions. So there's different types of conversions. One would be an in-plan Roth rollover. So this is where someone has money that's in their solo 401k that's in a pre-tax status, and they want to convert it to a Roth status, right? So that'll be taxable for the year of the conversion, right? Because it's going from a pre-tax status to a post-tax status. It's also going to be reportable, right? So it has to be reported on a 1099-R. So we handled that as an optional free service for our clients. In other words, no additional charge, right? They have a form. There's a form on our website that clients use to give us the information that we need to put their plan in the queue to be able to issue that 1099-R. Again, we handle it for no additional charge. Another scenario that a lot of our clients would require a 1099-R is a mega backdoor Roth solo 401k contribution. Because really the way that you make a mega backdoor Roth solo 401k contribution, the way that you're able to get to those very high limits, right? Like I mentioned before, $69,000, $76,500 if you're 50 or older for 2024, where you could end up with that much money in your Roth solo 401k is you're making what's called a voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution. So a voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution, the limit is much higher than your Roth 401k limit, right? You can contribute, for example, 100% of your self-employment compensation up to the overall limit as a voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution. That's how you're able to get to such a high contribution amount. But mechanically, the way that it works is that you first have to deposit that voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution into a separate voluntary after-tax solo 401k account before it gets moved over to a Roth solo 401k account. So it's a two-step process. So that transfer, the contribution to the after-tax account is not reportable on the personal or business tax return, but the subsequent transfer from the after-tax solo 401k account to the Roth solo 401k account is reportable. So our plan, of course, allows for those types of conversions, which is how, why our plan's eligible for the mega backdoor Roth solo 401k. And then on top of that, we provide the support in terms of preparing the 1099-R. Again, we have an online form clients can use 24/7 to give us the information that's needed to put their plan in the queue for that 1099-R. And then, of course, the benefit of all that is now your money's in a Roth account, right? It could be pre-tax to Roth, after tax to Roth, and then you got that potential tax-free growth, right? So as long as as long as you have that Roth solo 401k for 5 years and you're at least 59 and a half, when you take the distribution, all the gains are going to be tax-free. Next is our plan is eligible for a $1,500 tax credit. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper when we get to the bonus content, but that would definitely be a top reason that clients are setting up accounts with us, right? Because that significantly offsets the cost of setting up and maintaining, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, our costs are $0. The net cost is $0 for the first 7 years when you factor in the $1,500 tax credit. Next would be our compliance support, right? So we're not providing investment advice. We're not holding people's funds, but we provide tremendous compliance support when it comes to their 401k plan. Like we've talked about with the 1099-R preparation, right? That would be for conversions, for distributions, right? That would be another scenario where 1099-R is needed if you are taking a taxable distribution from your solo 401k. The fact that we handle preparation and electronic filing of the Form 5500 EZ as an optional free service. In other words, no additional charge for the plans that need it, right? Plans would need it if the value of the plan exceeds $250,000, right? Clients just have to let us know to put their plan in the queue, let us know that the value exceeds $250,000. So then we can go ahead and prepare that. Again, we handle it under the electronic filing system to make it easy for all parties. We allow you to choose where to hold the solo 401k funds, right? Like we talked about, you can open it up at hundreds of different banks, many different brokerages. We'll prepare the paperwork to open up the accounts. For example, at the brokerages, we'll prepare the transfer paperwork. We'll prepare the solo 401k loan documents for folks that want to take a solo 401k loan. We're helping clients calculate the contributions. What are the limits in their specific scenario, right? What are the rules, right? Can I make this type of investment? How would it work? Exactly. We're educating them on the rules and regulations. And it's all for a flat fee, right? So clients know exactly what they're signing up for. So the cost is $650, which is the $525 establishment fee, plus the first $125 annual fee. And then on the anniversary date, that $125 annual fee to cover the second year will be due, right? And it's totally flat, regardless of the support that's needed. And then, of course, with a $1,500 tax credit, right, that's going to offset that, more than offset it for the first 7 years. So the net cost is $0 over those first 7 years. So now let's turn to the process, right? What are the mechanical steps, A to Z? So step one, of course, is completing our online application and processing payment. If you go to mysolo401k.net and click on open account, you can easily find the application for the solo 401k. It's just 10 simple questions, just takes a minute to complete. We're just gathering the information that's needed to be able to draft the solo 401k plan documents specifically for your business, right? We have an IRS approved plan. We use our IRS approved plan documents to create a solo 401k specifically for your business. So once the application and payment is made, we prepare the documents same day. An email goes out with a link to our secure portal where the customer can download the documents from the portal, number one. From that same email, they're going to have an opportunity to upload the signature pages, right? So it's all pre-filled out. You just download, sign, you upload. And then third, from that same email, we take you to our website where clients let us know where they want to have the accounts. Do they want to do a rollover? So then that'll prompt us to prepare all the paperwork that's needed to open up accounts at the bank or brokerage of choice. So they step three, they download and sign. Step four, they're uploading or faxing the completed and signed pages. Then they're going to the website to let us know, from that same email that they got same day, right, where they can access the documents. There's a link in there where they can go to our website, tell us where they want to have the bank or brokerage account, tell us if they want to do a rollover. So that takes us to step five, right? We're opening the bank or brokerage account. So another email goes out with all the pre-filled paperwork specifically for their plan to be able to open up the account or accounts at the bank or brokerage of choice. Let's say they wanted to go with Schwab, right? It would all be pre-filled out with the paperwork that Schwab requires to open up a free brokerage account at Schwab. Customer just simply downloads, signs, uploads, and then we review and compile that Schwab application, fax it to the back office at Schwab. Then the customer gets an email from Schwab to let them know that the account is open. Once the accounts are open, it's time to fund the accounts. So the accounts can be funded by either rolling over money from an existing retirement account or making a contribution, or both. So like I mentioned, we're guiding clients through the rollover process, through the contribution process, so it can happen as quickly as possible. So as far as some of the top considerations when it comes to opening up an account, right? Number one would be number of participants. So there's a lot of clients that do have multiple participants, right? It could be a husband and wife that are both participating in the same plan, right? They're both working in the same business. And so in that case, each person is going to have their own separate account. Another consideration would be the type of fund, right? So you got some folks that are making pre-tax, Roth, and after-tax contributions. So in that case, they would need 3 accounts. And if there's 2 of them and they're each trying to make pre-tax, Roth, and after-tax, now you have 6 accounts. So as part of that process where we're asking individuals, where do you want to open up the account? We also are asking, okay, well, what type of contributions are you looking to make, so that we can prepare the paperwork to open the requisite number of accounts, right? If they say Schwab, Mega Backdoor Roth, now we're preparing 3 applications at Schwab to open up the 3 different sub accounts that would be needed at Schwab. Again, bank or brokerage. There, a lot of times it comes down to, okay, what are you looking to invest in, right? Of course, if you want to invest in brokerage type investments, you need a brokerage account, like a mutual fund, stocks, bonds, etc. If you want to invest in alternative investments based on experience and client feedback, a lot of clients find that it's helpful to have a bank account, and you can have both, right? You can move money between them. Reason that you might want to have a bank account if you want to invest in alternative investments is because now you have access to things like certified checks, right? Let's say you want to go to a real estate auction and you need a certified check to access that auction, right? A debit card. Let's say you want to invest in a real estate property. Having that debit card would allow you to pay expenses related to your real estate investment, right? Now, keep in mind, a number of the brokerage firms do offer free checkbooks, but they don't offer debit cards. They don't offer certified checks, right? If you also ACH, so the brokerage firms that open up accounts for third-party plans like ours, like Fidelity, Schwab, etc., don't allow for an external ACH. So if you're, say, private placement investment provider is going to require that all the investors ACH their investments, you would need to have a bank account for your solo 401k in order to be able to ACH funds out of the account to the investment provider. Transfers, rollovers is a good slide, as it just illustrates, okay, you can roll over money from a former employer plan, a traditional IRA, but not a Roth IRA, because the Roth IRA rules don't allow for those types of rollovers. They don't allow for rolling over funds to any type of 401k, including a solo 401k. So use cases, why open a solo 401k? Well, number one, the frugal investor, right? So someone who is trying to be as cost efficient as possible. So including the tax credit, the net cost to set up and maintain a solo 401k with my solo 401k financial is $0 over the first 7 years. The fees can be paid with non-retirement funds to preserve the retirement funds. In other words, you could pay with a credit card or a debit card. You don't have to deplete your 401k account balance to pay the fees. Another great use case would be someone that wants to maximize Roth contributions, right? Because our plan not only allows for employer Roth contributions, employee, it also allows for the Mega Backdoor Roth solo 401k, which is how folks are able to contribute up to $69,000 or even $76,500 if they're 50 or older. On top of that, if they already have money in a pre-tax status, right? It could be in a pre-tax IRA, or it could be in their pre-tax solo 401k. Let's say it's in a pre-tax IRA. Then they roll it over to the pre-tax solo 401k account. Then they can transfer it as much or as little as they want from the pre-tax solo 401k sub account to the Roth solo 401k sub account. Some clients, based on their advisors or their financial planners, et cetera, when their income is low in a particular year or relatively low, at the end of the year, they may say, okay, they may be coached up to say, okay, why don't you move $10,000 from your pre-tax solo 401k account to your Roth solo 401k account. We'll add it to your income for this year, but then you'll have all the potential for tax-free growth on that money going forward. Another great scenario would be the large account holder. That's another great use case. Why? Well, because once you have more than $250,000 in value of your solo 401k plan, there's going to be a 5500EZ filing requirement. So a tax return has to be filed. Now, it's an informational tax return. Of course, it's not triggering a tax obligation, but information about the plan has to be submitted. And so we're on the electronic filing system. So we prepare the 5500EZ on the electronic filing system. We just assign it to the client for signature. Then it comes back to us in the system, and then we submit it, right? And all of that is an optional free service. In other words, no additional charge. Another great use case would be the alternative investor, right? So a lot of our clients, they want to invest in alternative investments, whether that's real estate, private placements, private stock, cryptocurrency, precious metals like gold, notes. They also might want to do both, right? So that's totally fine, right? Because we'll help them open up accounts also at a brokerage, right, where they're also investing in maybe stocks, bonds, mutual funds, maybe certificates of deposits. So someone that really wants to have a diverse type of investments in their solo 401k is going to be attracted to our type of solo 401k plan that allows for these types of investments. The rainy day investor. So as mentioned, our plan does allow for a solo 401k loan. So unlike an IRA where you cannot borrow from an IRA, if you have a solo 401k plan that allows it, like ours, then you can take a solo 401k loan. Now, it needs to be documented as a loan. We handle the loan documentation preparation as an optional free service, no additional charge. We do that within 1 day, right, when someone requests us to prepare the documents. And then that would allow the person to be able to borrow up to 50% of the balance, not to exceed $50,000. That's per participant. So if you got a husband and wife that are both participating in the solo 401k, they each have at least $100,000 in solo 401k account value. They would each be able to take a $50,000 loan and then use the money for any purpose whatsoever. So the rainy day investor would be another great scenario. So as mentioned, I wanted to touch on the tax credit. So under the Secure Act, a number of tax credits were authorized to encourage small businesses to offer 401k plans. Not all of those tax credits are available to solo 401k plans. Like the startup cost credit is going to be limited to businesses that have non-owner employees, whereas the automatic participation credit would be available to a self-employed individual that doesn't have any non-owner employees, as long as they set up a plan like ours that includes the automatic participation feature. So this credit is a $1,500 tax credit. It's $500 per year over 3 consecutive years for a total of $1,500. It'll be available to both new plans that are set up to include the automatic participation feature, as well as existing plans that are upgraded to our plan to include the automatic participation feature. It's not based on the actual cost to set up and maintain the solo 401k. So that means that even though our costs are much less, right, than $1,500, the individual will be able to claim the full $1,500 in credits. So if someone sets up a plan here in 2024, they'd be able to claim the $500 credit starting with their 2024 taxes, and then again for 2 more years for a total of $1,500. If someone already has an existing solo 401k, could be a Vanguard, could be a Fidelity, Schwab, etc., and then they convert to our plan here in 2024, that would make them eligible to start being able to claim the $500 credit when they file their 2024 taxes, and then again for 2 more years in 2025 and 2026. So the credit is not a function of the cost. So our fees are $650. That includes the $525 establishment fee plus the first $125 annual fee. And then on the anniversary date, the annual fee is due. So this time next year, for example, for someone that signs up now, to cover the second year. So for the first year, the net cost is going to be $150 after you factor in the $500 credit. For the second year, even though the cost is over only $125, you can still claim the full $500 tax credit. So the value of the credit is actually going to exceed the value of the cost in the second and third years. So that's why over the first 7 years, our total costs are less than $1,500. So it's more than covered by the credit. Now, this is a tax credit, not a tax deduction. So with a tax deduction, the individual is reducing their income upon which their tax liability is calculated. Whereas with the tax credit, the individual first determines their tax liability and then is able to reduce their tax liability dollar for dollar by the value of the credit. So this means that a tax credit is much better than a tax deduction because of this dollar for dollar reduction in their tax liability. So in order to be eligible, you have to first be eligible to set up a plan and then set up a solo 401k plan like our plan that includes the automatic contribution feature. So the automatic contribution feature, what it's doing is it's setting a default 3% contribution percentage amount, but the solo 401k owner has the option to opt out, has to be given the option to opt out of the default amount. So opting out of the default amount doesn't mean that the person can't make contributions, right? As a matter of fact, they can make greater than 3% contributions, or they can make less than 3% contributions. It also means that the solo 401k owner can now make contributions whichever schedule they prefer. So now you're preserving all that flexibility that naturally comes with a solo 401k by opting out of the default amount, but it doesn't mean that the individual is not eligible to claim the credit because they're just exercising their rights under the automatic contribution feature. As a matter of fact, the individual is not even required to make solo 401k contributions to qualify for the credit. So if you have an existing plan, yes, it could be upgraded to our plan so that it now includes the automatic contribution feature. And now the self-employed individual is eligible to claim the credit. The way that the credit is claimed is by filing Form 8881. We have tremendous resources for our clients. We have a deep dive walkthrough so they know exactly what needs to be filed. It starts out with Form 8881. And then the next steps in order to be able to claim the credit are going to depend on what type of business the individual has, right? Are they taxed as a sole prop versus an S corp? So we have all the walkthroughs for all the scenarios that we make available to our clients so they can easily reap the benefits. So let's say, just a couple quick examples. Lindsay's self-employed. She already has a solo 401k plan. If she amends her plan to add the auto contribution feature during 2024, now she'll be able to claim the credit when she files her 2024 taxes. And then again, for 2 more years for a total of $1,500, as long as she continues to maintain the solo 401k plan with the automatic contribution feature. Whereas Brad, he's eligible to set up a plan, doesn't have one, but he's eligible because he's a solo attorney with no employees working for him. So if he signs up for a solo 401k here in 2024, he would be able to claim a $500 tax credit when he files his 2024 taxes. And then again, for 2 more years for a total of $1,500, as long as he continues to maintain the plan with the automatic contribution feature. So now, before we go to the good comments and questions, again, just to highlight the resources, tremendous resources on the website, mysolo401k.net/my community, daily office hours, Zoom style calls, forums, webinar with hundreds of videos and and webinars in the library. So please don't hesitate to join. All are welcome. If I maximize my voluntary after-tax contributions at $66,000 for 2023, do I need a 1099-R form which designates the $66,000 total if I have an LLC taxed as an S corp? So making the contribution is not reported on the personal tax return or the business tax return. Is not reported on a 1099-R, but the subsequent transfer is going to be reportable when you move the money from the after-tax account to the Roth account. So we have a form on our website that clients use to let us know about that move. There's one form if the funds are being moved to a Roth solo 401k. There's a different online form if it's being moved to a Roth IRA. So then we can capture that information that's needed and put their plan in the queue to be able to prepare that 1099-R. Now that 1099-R is going to be issued for the year of the transfer. So if someone is making 2023 contributions here in 2024, which is certainly possible, right? They can make those contributions all the way up until the business tax return deadline, including any time they filed extension. The 1099-R is not going to be issued until it's not going to be issued for 2024, or it will be issued for 2024. It'll be prepared at the beginning of 2025. Hopefully that makes sense. Thank you so much for the good questions. And I see this comment here. Yes, let me pull up. If you're able to send me an email now to george@mysolo401k.net, and I'll look for your name here that I see on the YouTube so we can get that pulled up right away. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll look for that on the discrepancy. I have an idea that it may be around the self-employment tax, where the CPA may be wanting, like if someone has a W-2 job and is self-employed, their actual self-employment tax may be different than what's being used on the calculator. Whereas the calculator is calculating self-employment tax where someone doesn't have a W-2 job. So there's no specific guidance from the IRS that says that someone who has a W-2 job and is also self-employed could use the actual self-employment tax to calculate self-employment compensation. So the risk of taking that approach of using the actual self-employment tax in the absence of specific guidance from the IRS saying that that's an acceptable approach is that the individual will end up making an excess contribution, right? Because now their self-employment compensation will be higher. So given that risk, given the absence of specific IRS guidance saying that that's an acceptable approach, the prudent approach would be to use the self-employment tax that the person would have had to have paid if they didn't have a W-2 job, right? And there's one thought that why would the IRS want to treat someone who has a W-2 job and is self-employed different than a self-employed person that doesn't have a W-2 job, right? It doesn't seem that from a policy perspective that they would necessarily want to do that. And so that would be another reason that one might conclude that the prudent approach is to use the self-employment tax that the individual would have had to have paid if they didn't have a W-2 job. In other words, use the calculator to determine self-employment compensation. I run payroll once per year, but like dollar to dollar cost average, the employer contributions each month. Can I make employer Roth contributions monthly, or will that be a pain from a filing perspective? So when you make the employer Roth contributions, first of all, based on our experience and client feedback, it's generally not done because our plan already allows for voluntary after-tax contributions. And with voluntary after-tax contributions, the limit is 100% dollar for dollar of self-employment compensation, whereas the employer contribution limit is a percentage. So you don't need, in other words, as much money to justify the contribution because you're able to contribute dollar for dollar when you're making voluntary after-tax contributions, and then those funds can be moved over to the Roth solo 401k. Another reason that individuals, based on experience, et cetera, is that there was a big question as far as how to report employer Roth contributions, because the ability to make employer Roth contributions was a new concept. It was first authorized under Secure Act 2.0, right at the end of 2022. And it wasn't until almost a year later that the IRS came out with the guidance as far as how to report employer Roth contributions. So the guidance from the IRS is that the employer Roth contribution will be tax deductible on the employer's return for the year for which the contribution is being made, but reported as taxable to the employee for the year for which the contribution is deposited. So let's assume that the individual is making employer Roth contributions in 2024, but for 2023. That means it would be reduced on the 2023 employer's return, right? The income would be reduced on the employer's return for 2023, but then raised on the employee's return for 2024. So essentially you're shifting the income from 2023 to 2024. So if the individual is making monthly employer Roth contributions, yes, that can be done. But each time they're doing that, they're going to want to go to our website to let us know about that contribution so that we can capture the information so it can be issued. So a 1099-R can be issued. Now, it would just be one 1099-R, aggregate all those different employer Roth contributions made, deposited during that year. So it's going to definitely introduce additional administrative requirements versus just a lump sum employer contribution. Also, you want to be careful that you don't end up in an excess contribution scenario, right? Because unlike when someone makes an employee contribution and it turns out to be excess, the individual has an opportunity to remove the excess contribution by April 15th of the following year. But when someone makes an excess employer contribution, there's no opportunity to do that under the rules when you make an excess contribution. So that could be another scenario or another reason that someone might want to wait, just make sure exactly how much that employer contribution would be and just make it as a lump sum. But I would say those are some of the considerations for your good question there. Thank you so much. Can I do a traditional IRA rollover at any point. Like I can open, can I open fund with my existing Vanguard for now, migrating away, then talk with my advisor about doing a mega backdoor later? Yes, you certainly can. I mean, if you have a IRA at Vanguard, a traditional IRA, and the individual is self-employed, no full-time W-2 employees, meaning they're eligible to set up a solo 401k, they could open up a solo 401k and then they could roll over their IRA now. They could roll it over later. There's no requirement to roll over the IRA at all. And someone could start out by making just pre-tax and Roth, and later on, or just pre-tax, right? And then later on, they could add the Roth accounts or add the mega backdoor Roth. So you can dial it up, dial it down based on your situation. Good questions. So as far as the difference between those accounts, it's going to really, just to be clear, is you do have to have separate accounts, right? For pre-tax Roth versus after tax. The provider of the accounts, let's say Fidelity, they're just providing the accounts and it's governed by a third-party plan, right? That we're providing. And so ultimately, as long as the accounts are being used consistently for the specific type, it doesn't matter, right? The individual can just pick one and say, okay, this is my pre-tax account. Maybe I'm going to go into the system and nickname it pre-tax. This other one's my Roth account. I'm going to go into the system and nickname it Roth. This is my after-tax account. I'm going to go into the system and nickname it after-tax. And from a solo 401k perspective, that's totally acceptable. As long as the account is consistently used going forward, just for pre-tax, just for Roth, just for after-tax. Hopefully that makes sense. Thank you so much for sending those emails. How much can I contribute to my post-tax account and will it affect my taxes? So it depends. And we have tremendous resources as far as helping individuals determine how much they can contribute, right? One factor is going to be how your self-employed business is taxed. Another factor is going to be your age. Another factor is going to be the type of contribution that you're trying to make. So let's assume the individual is under 50. Let's assume the individual's business is taxed as an S corporation. Let's assume they don't make contributions to another plan, like a day job plan. Let's assume they have $100,000 of W-2 wages from their business taxed as an S corporation, and they only want to make after-tax contributions. So in that situation, for 2024, the individual will be able to contribute $69,000 as a voluntary after-tax contribution, right? Because they can contribute 100% of their self-employment compensation, dollar for dollar, up to the overall limit. Here, we're assuming the individual has $100,000 of W-2 wages from their self-employed business. And so if they don't make any other contributions to the solo 401k, they can contribute $69,000. They can contribute all of it, dollar for dollar, up to $69,000 as an after-tax contribution. Well, that's after tax, right? So it's not going to reduce their income for the year for which they made the contribution, right? It's not even reportable. So when you make a voluntary after-tax contribution, your business is taxed as an S corporation per the W-2 instructions. You could report it on the W-2, but it's optional to do so. Okay, great. Thank you so much. To your point regarding self-employment being treated differently from an IRS, if the W-2 reaches a Social Security threshold, then wouldn't additional self-employment income be treated the same? Yes, that is true. So yes, technically you are, that's why you end up, I would say, with having a difference between actual and the self-employment tax that you actually pay versus the self-employment tax that you would pay if you didn't have a W-2 job. So even though that is true in terms of the self-employment tax that you have to pay, in terms of determining how much you can contribute to the solo 401k, that specific question hasn't been addressed. So in the absence of specific guidance from the IRS saying that that approach is acceptable, the prudent approach, in our view, would be to use the self-employment tax that would have had to have been paid if the person didn't have a day job, i.e. the self-employment tax on the calculator. Hopefully that makes sense. But ultimately, individuals, they make their own decisions. So, but we provide that perspective, that educational perspective. Once I choose a brokerage, is the contribution process just EFT from my business bank account to the brokerage and submit stock buys? So not necessarily. Each brokerage is going to have their own process. They're all going to allow you to wire money to the accounts, right? Typically, the brokerage, if you want to ACH money to the account, typically the brokerage would allow you to link an external bank account and ACH funds, but they're going to typically require that the name on the external account matches the name on the brokerage. Now, one exception to that typical requirement would be Fidelity, where they're more permissive in allowing external electronic deposits to come from an external account where the name on the external account doesn't match the name on the brokerage. And then, of course, folks will make contributions by check, could mail it to the back office with a cover letter saying where to deposit, could take it to the branch and tell the folks at the branch where to deposit the check, right? They may have other non-retirement accounts at the same brokerage, and then they transfer funds from the non-retirement account to the brokerage account for the solo 401k. Hopefully that makes sense. Thank you for the good questions. So if I make the full dollar for dollar contribution to my post-tax account, is that now a Roth account, or what kind of account is that? I want the money to end up in Roth. Well, if you're trying to make a true voluntary after-tax contribution, you have to go through that two-step process where you first deposit the funds into a voluntary after-tax solo 401k account that's used consistently as that type of account going forward, and then moved either to the Roth solo 401k account or a Roth IRA. So it's that two-step process. Once the funds are in the Roth solo 401k account, now they're going to be like other Roth funds where they grow tax deferred, potentially tax free. If at the time of the distribution from the Roth solo 401k, it's a qualified Roth distribution, meaning the individual has had the account for at least 5 years and they're over 59 and a half years of age. Thank you so much. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for the good participation. We do appreciate it. Please continue to engage. Again, tremendous resources in the community, mysolo401k.net/my-community. Follow us on YouTube, right? So you get all the notifications. And post in the forums. Come check out the video library on the community, etc. Thank you so much. Until next time, take care, everyone.